part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Chase Smith, founder and CEO of Press Play Podcast. You may have heard me on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast with Jeremy Powell, now wonderfully hosted by Holly Wetzel, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast with Sam Amico, or my own podcast, the Chase Smith Podcast. I wanted to take a few moments to talk to you about a brand new subscription-based podcast we're offering this football season, the Press Play Sports Podcast. This premium podcast feed will send all of the sports podcasts offered on the Press Play Podcast Network to one central feed. Yes, you can still follow and subscribe to all of our individual shows for free on every podcast platform. But if you wanted to consolidate your podcast feed and listen to them all in one location, the Press Play Sports Podcast is for you. I'm talking the Oranges and Oranger Browns podcast with Holly Wetzel and Jeremy Powell, Red Guy and Rhoda, Sable Brothers on the Baseline, Cavs on the Break, the Dennis Maniloff Show, the Ball Card Show, the Premium Fantasy Podcast, a Swing in a Tribe MLB podcast, and the Tim and Shipe Show, a college football podcast, all in one feed. All 9 of our sports shows curated into one single podcast feed. Out the door, you're looking at $5.36 a month after tax. That's $5.36, just about the cost of a drink at Starbucks. And this is only offered on Apple Podcasts. You can't get this anywhere else. It's an Apple Podcast exclusive. Just go to the search bar and search Press Play Sports. It'll come up and you can subscribe from there. We're excited to offer this consolidated, curated sports feed for you to enjoy. And as always, thank you so much for listening and your support.
This episode of the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Align Health Center. Align Health Center is the first chiropractic biophysics clinic in Northern Ohio. The team at Align Health Center helps patients with back pain, neck pain, migraines, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep disturbance, whiplash, scoliosis, and much more. And along with chiropractic biophysics, Align Health Center is also the leading clinic in regenerative medicine, also known as stem cell injections. And listen, you don't have to be an NFL player to get it done or have this treatment. If you have low back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, or arthritis, check out the Regenerative Medicine Clinic at Aligned Health Center. Come in for a free consultation, complete with imaging and x-rays to see how Aligned Health Center can help you. No multiple shots are needed, and it's complete with physical therapy built into the process, so there's no downtime. And look, it gets even better. Align Health Center doesn't charge people for x-rays or exams, and they don't bill you later. They let you know right away the cost. They're upfront and transparent. They are number one for a reason. Call Align Health Center today at 440-385-7357 or visit their website at alignedhealthcenters.com to make an appointment and to learn more about how Align Health Center can help you. Again, that's 440-385-7357 or visit alignedhealthcenters.com.
45-40, run, William, run! He's got blockers in front, 5, touchdown! Joshua Cribb! Snap back, ball down, kick block! They blocked the kick!
All right, welcome into the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. I'm Holly Wetzel at Holly and Liz on Twitter. Joined, of course, as always, with my good old Browns partner in crime, Jeremy Powell. Jeremy, how you doing? Did you get some rest on this bye week? Are you feeling refreshed?
I actually do feel great for some reason. I feel great. I know I heard Kevin Stefanski today said that the Browns looked rested and maybe was their best practice of the year today, maybe. So
how about it?
That would be awesome.
How about it? A little color from Stefanski this week?
I will say, though, that it was probably one of my more fun Sundays because I watched a little bit of football, then I went up to the Cavs game. The Cavs game was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
So it was a nice little change of pace, but I'm ready to get back at it, though. 5 weeks to go. After watching a lot of football yesterday, Holly, I'll tell you this. There is not a lot of great football teams right now. Like nobody looks great. Nobody looks great. It's so the Browns do have every opportunity, and I didn't think I'd be saying this, to get back in it just because nobody is running away with anything right now.
I know.
So
who'd have thought too? It's such a strange situation to be in. And well, before we get to the Browns, Jeremy, it is the holidays. Okay. And I want to know how your Thanksgiving was. Did you eat a lot of turkey? I know that you're like Mr. Fit right now.
No, I'm fasting, but luckily I have a 5-hour window. I have a 5-hour window to eat. Right. So yeah. So I mean,
is that really? It's 5 hours. That's your window.
What I'm doing. So I read a book, and they've settled on that kind of the 19-hour fast is like the most effective. Okay. So, and then it's called like the OMAD approach, which is 1 meal a day. So you have like one big meal and then you have a few snacks afterwards. and then you fast for 19 hours. And your meal that you think is going to be huge generally doesn't end up that way, because after 19 hours, you eat like 4 bites and you're like, oh, I'm full. So it's working great. And I actually have a lot of energy. Plus, they say about the fasting, one of the good things is brings your insulin levels down. So I'm doing a clean fast, which means nothing but mineral water and water. So your body's not releasing any insulin in those times. This is supposedly very healthy and lowers your cholesterol. And so it's all around health thing.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going great. So how did your Thanksgiving go? Mine went great. Tons of family, went to my parents' house. It was a blast. And, we ate and watched football. So what did you do?
All right. Body by Jeremy. Noted.
Yeah, we'll see in about 4 months how I look.
Right. My Thanksgiving was interesting. My whole family got COVID. So all vaccinated family, by the way. My mom was out for like almost 2 weeks. But then my dad got it, and he's still dealing with the no taste, no smell, which has just got to be the most frustrating thing. And my brother-in-law got it, and my nephew. And I had my little brother in town with his girlfriend. They were supposed to split up all their time, staying with myself, my sister, my parents. And they ended up hanging out at Hotel Holly for the majority of the week in my 1-bedroom apartment. So we got real close, real fast. So it was an interesting Thanksgiving. But we were able, my mom actually felt a lot better the morning of Thanksgiving. Thank God. I did not think she was going to. So we were able to have Thanksgiving at my sister. So it was a whirlwind. It was nice, like you said, to have following week with the Browns off. I'm ready to get back at it. We're in a interesting time of the season right now, right? Like I want to know what is really realistic at this point, like where's the confidence level, which is mine is rather low. What kind of team are we going to get after the bye? Yes, Stefanski's been preaching that this is, that this is much needed and everything. Most of the players laid really low over the bye week. We haven't seen a lot of posts. There isn't really. So that's kind of strange. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. At least nobody's like out partying on boats, bringing COVID back or something.
Right. That was my fear.
Yeah. Well, it's a good fear, because it's like, yeah, do you like quarantine kind of like for all of this? I don't know. I mean, and it's not even a thing if nobody test positive, right? But if they do, then it becomes the biggest storyline, of course. But yeah, so it's what's realistic at this point. We're, like you mentioned, in the beginning, that we're just beyond lucky that the AFC North has become basically a game of musical chairs. I mean, it's ridiculous. We would have been in first place if we beat the Ravens. Is that what it was? Game.
Yep.
I mean, and we have it goes back to the margin of error, right? Very, very small. We have a super rugged path coming up, 3 division games, and, we're back round 2 with the Ravens. And then after that, we got Cincinnati, Vegas, and Denver. So there's, I'm sorry. What did I just say? Cincinnati, Vegas, and Denver.
No, we have
Cincinnati,
Vegas next week. Yeah.
Vegas.
We have the Ravens this week, then the Vegas, then the Packers.
And then Green Bay. Packers, yeah.
No, yeah, Packers
Denver.
on Christmas.
What am I thinking?
The Packers on Christmas, and then we have the Steelers Monday night, and the Bengals the last game, right?
That's right. Yeah, I don't know where Denver came from, so
that's right. We already beat them.
Yeah, true. I don't want to take anything. Yes, we did beat them, so let's just keep that. But yeah, so they, we're hearing a lot of good mojo coming out of Berea, which is good. But Jeremy, at this point, there's a couple things that, well, not even just a couple, there's a lot, but there's some major things I think that we really need to be focusing on. And if I'm Stefanski, these are for me, the major things are, one, our incredibly bleak passing game and Baker's true inconsistency in his health. Everyone in a position of power, I think it was, I can't who said this, I think it was Nick Wright. And everyone that's in a position of power within the Browns organization is saying he's healthy. Everyone is saying that. Barry came out and said it last week or whatever and said he was. But it's hard to ignore it, right? These guys play through pain. He's no different in that stance. And if it's not his shoulder, it's his foot or it's his knee. I mean, it's like whack-a-mole with his body of every injury. And look, that's got to suck. Okay. I'm not taking that away from him. I'm sure that that's got to be such a pain in the ass. And it's such a downer on so many levels, but Jeremy's attitude blows. It sucks. He's constantly on the defense of everything and everyone. And look, the expectations grew. We all knew they were going to grow. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and you got 17 games, you're playing for this, that if you don't play well, people are going to be upset. Like, I don't think that Cleveland or anyone's doing anything more than any other team would be doing to their quarterback. I don't see it. I don't understand it. And so he's one. And, a couple other small things, obviously stopping the penalties. We only hurt ourselves clearly, and we need some major discipline back. And, getting back what we're best at, wearing our opponent down with the run game, stop abandoning the run game so early. I mean, I don't know. And this is a question for you too, I guess, is what really the Browns are thinking when it comes to, are they playing Baker through all this because, well, they already made that decision and they're sticking with it, right? Is it, they want to see how he does?
This is, you know what I think? I think they think he's fragile, just like we see. And I think they think that if they pull the plug now, that's it. That's it. Like, Baker is done here. And I don't think they're ready to go to that spot. I was thinking about this over the bye week on our time off. I was thinking that's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that they know how fragile this guy's psyche is. They see the stuff he says on social media. They know what goes on. So they think, you know what, if we set him down now, even telling him, hey, you're hurt, we're going to play Case Keenum, that's probably the end of him here, because he's never going to come back from it. And if that's the
ridiculous.
Case, which true, but I can see that being their thought process. Kind of like, look, he's our starting quarterback. We're going to commit to him. And that doesn't matter. I agree with you, because we talked about this before. If they think that they have a better chance to win playing Case Keenum, they should play Case Keenum, because they owe the team that, they owe the fans that, they owe the coaches that, they owe everybody that organizationally. But I mean, obviously they either don't believe that, or what I said is true, that, they're worried about his psyche if they were to pull him out, even if they, tell him, look, we're going to pull you for the injury. I think they're thinking, as long as there's a chance to be in the playoffs, we got to keep Baker playing. Now, if we lose a couple in a row and we go to 6-8, and then there's no chance we're going to the playoffs, then maybe you see him shut him down, and then he probably can handle it, because he'd be like, look, we're not playing for anything. So, yeah. But that's one. Maybe I'm way off, and maybe they really do believe he's healthy enough to play and to win. But this is just something I thought about, that maybe they think mentally he couldn't handle it.
Who do you think it is a truly a coaching decision that he's playing and he thinks maybe shouldn't, or do you think it's a Baker calling it? Because I can't help but think, with how bullheaded he can be, that he's pushing to play, which I get it. Right.
Yeah, but of course he wants to play, but if he's not really ready, someone has to be the one to step in and say, well, look, they did do it for the Denver game. Look, Case Keenum started the Denver game, so they were able to say, so clearly they are listening to the doctors, right? Because the doctors are probably who said he couldn't play. How could they have sold that?
How could they have sold that? They were coming off a short week like that. How would you have even? Yeah, I don't know. It's a constant conversation and battle of where he stands, if he's healthy or if he's not. I'll tell you this: he's got 5 games right now, coming off the bye week. He's got had a little time to refresh. No excuses. He's got 5 games to prove that he's the franchise quarterback going forward, or else they look to bring in someone else next year to compete. Maybe a Gardner Minshew. I don't know if you caught his act in the parking lot after the game. Did you see that? One of the cooler videos I've ever seen. Him just emotional hugging his dad and all that. Yeah. I did see that.
He's got to be one of the most likable guys in the league. Gardner has 39 touchdowns and 11 picks. 30 in his career is 39 and 11. The guy it's amazing. Underrated. He's sort of, remember when he sort of acted a little bit like Baker when he first started coming around. He's kind of like, I was just going to say, that sounds like when Baker first came here. Yeah. When Baker still had his swag and his love and whatever happened. Yeah, and
he wasn't so damn bitter all the time. Like,
right. I don't know. He's always been a little bitter, but I think it's one of those things when we're winning, Baker is, the greatest. When you're losing, the act wears thin, right? A little bit. Yeah. So. Right. That always says, right. Winning cures everything. Exactly. And it'll be a big, paradigm shift next week. The other thing too, that that's, I think, a much bigger underlying issue. And I've heard rumblings now from inside sources and others that there might be, there's some problem in that locker room. Baker's not trusted, or, there's
where there's smoke, there's fire. We've been saying that forever. And you said in the beginning when we started the podcast for the season was, wait till the players start coming out and things start getting leaked. And when there's a leak, that it's always leads to a bigger issue. And Kareem Hunt's dad going on Facebook, I don't remember these parents all of a sudden are on social media. And it's not that they're like, I want the Browns to play better. My son rocks, all this, whatever. It's, hey, Baker Mayfield specifically sucks. So why? What is
that was
happening?
Weird, man. That's something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen this in the NFL with parents. Have you? And we've seen wives. No. We see Patrick Mahomes' wife and his little brother, and we've seen Matthew Stafford's wife, and we've seen Baker.
Yeah,
I don't remember parents going after a quarter. I think this is a first, and to have it happen twice in one season, man.
Right. Within a couple weeks of each other. It's a very strange thing.
I will say this. I do feel good that, like what you talked about earlier, that it was like a low key bye week. You didn't hear any rumblings. You didn't hear anybody out doing crazy stuff. You didn't hear anybody leaking anything, to the media. So, and maybe Stefanski's right. Maybe now Kareem has a week. Maybe he'll be back. He was still a little bit beat up. Obviously, they said he tightened up during the game. So maybe now you get the real Kareem and you get Nick Chubb refreshed and you get a Ravens team that's even more beat up now, losing Marlon Humphrey for the year now. I have never seen you think everybody always is like the woe is me Cleveland, we lose. I have never seen anything like
the Ravens. Oh yeah.
They're everywhere.
That's what's so hard with this, Jeremy, is that they still find a way. I mean, minus yesterday to get it done. And so that's where you're like, well, wait a second. Why we have the talent. There may be questions on the depth that we didn't think were going to be an issue, but they are certainly now. And
I will say, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I did figure something. You know how the Ravens lost Thursday night to the Dolphins, okay, but before they played us, Thursday night game against the Dolphins, they lost. And then offense didn't play well against us, didn't play well against Pittsburgh. If you go back and look, a lot of the games the Ravens won this year, they had huge fourth quarter comebacks, 2 and 3 touchdown leads. They overcame in the second half. Right. But you know what I think is going on? And a lot of people say it was exposed that Lamar Jackson has a lot of trouble when people play man coverage with a single high over top. Because I think Lamar looks for those creases and the zones, and that's where he hits Mark Andrews and the seams and all that stuff. So if you see what's happening, teams had the leads late, and then they go into these shell defenses. Even watch the Steelers do it on that last drive. They were playing 4 deep a lot of that drive. They've been playing man with a single high safety all game long, and Lamar played bad. So I think that there's something to the fact that teams have kind of figured out how to slow them down. But then for whatever reason, football is a conservative sport. You get a 2 touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. You go into these shell defenses, and that's when Lamar is at his best, picking apart these zone defenses. So it'd be interesting to see going forward with Lamar Jackson. I know you disagree with me a little bit. I think maybe finally, me and Chase fought about this for years. Chase has never liked Lamar Jackson. He's always thought he was overrated, and I've always thought he was fantastic. But I always said I think he has like a 3 to 5 year shelf life. Because A, you're not going to be the fastest guy in the league forever. And B, teams are obviously going to start to fit him out eventually. And it looks like maybe that's 4 straight games under 20 points this week. And they scored 19 yesterday. 4 straight games, Ravens under 20 points. Lamar Jackson's had some of his worst games of his career in that 4-game stretch. Now, some of it could be the injuries finally catching up with them because they are beat up everywhere. Now their right tackle went down during that game. Marlon Humphrey's hurt now, like we said. So some of that could be catching up with them. But I think there's something to the fact that A, there's a lot of fast guys. So you can't always be the fastest guy on the field. And B, that teams might have found schematically something to slow him down.
Right. And look, of course, that's going to happen. Stefanski's been figured out. Yeah. Brad's been figured out, right? Yep. But the better players, and this is where
they adjust.
He might. Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's with coaching and with the players. So, and it's making those opportunities available, and then also from coaching, but then also on top of that, the players being able to make those in game time decisions of what's going to be the best move, and being able to make those plays to come back and win. And that's the biggest divide of where we're at versus someone like a team like the Ravens. It just is what it is. That's why I think Lamar will have a longer life, because of the fact that if the coaching is still there, if he has a supporting cast, and he's able to make those plays, he is fast. He may not be the fastest, but he's faster and he's taller. Yes. Right. So there's on a physical level, at least. So that's where I would say that I certainly think he has a longer life. I do think that maybe this is just not his year and it's not the Ravens' year,
It's
but they've
'cause,
still been able to sneak out and be 8-4. I don't know how in the world they're 8-4. That's insane. I was looking at that today and I was talking with my coworkers and I was like, wait, I'm like, the Ravens really are 8-4. They're really 8-4. That's crazy.
There's definitely some luck to that. I mean, yes, the 66-yard field goal by the longest field goal in NFL history.
Oh, I know. He's insane.
And he's insane and he is awesome. But that should have been a 71-yard field goal, okay? Because they got lucky on a completely missed delay of game call. And that was after they picked up a 4th and 19 on that same drive. So there's been a little bit of luck that's come along with that. But I mean, it is, you can't look, you make your own luck a lot of times in life, right? And John Harbaugh, as much as I hate him, he whines more than anybody in the league on the sideline. He's constantly crying to the refs. Even in that Browns game, it drove me nuts. They had just got that completely BS roughing the passer call on Clowney, where he took one step, and the rule is if it's one step, you're allowed to hit him. And then so the next series we get a call on one, and he is in the ref's ear crying. Like, how can he honestly cry to the ref after they just benefited from a horrible call? He's just a constant. He just seems like such a whiny dude. But he is. I mean, you got to give him. He is obviously an incredible coach. The biggest thing you have to give him credit for is he had the cojones, we'll say. He had the nerve to rebuild his entire offense around Lamar Jackson. And that's why that worked. Most coaches,
that's
no
where that
way.
confidence, no way. But that's where that confidence goes. That's what I'm saying. And it sucks. And well, here's at this point, I think it was Albert Breer that said, what is it that I can't, so I don't know if you heard this or not. I think it was like if a team does not franchise or sign the quarterback in their 5th year, they've not signed them after that for franchise, something along those lines. Did you hear that? Did you hear Albert Breer say that? It's never happened in the league. And I probably just butchered that. So God forbid someone please correct me. And
you're saying that the quarterback that's made it to the 5th year of their contract without being extended has never been extended?
Yes, I believe that's what he said. And it's never happened in the NFL. So we're coming up
right now.
So at what point?
Both.
Right. At what point
Lamar
now?
And Baker.
Right. So at what point now, though, do we look? I've been trying to say, like, okay, but we can still right the ship, and we can. We can. I'm not out on Baker. I don't hate Baker. We say this every week, but people seem to listen. That we know that he's talented, and I wanted the Browns to draft him. He was my dude, and I fought my dad on this constantly, and I can't fight my dad on it anymore. It's really, really hard. Yeah. So, I as much as I'm not even going to say confident, because I'm not confident. I do think they're going to get this win on Sunday, and we'll get to we'll get into what our predictions are, and I have a little mini fun game for Jeremy. But long story short, when does your confidence and your real decision on whether or not Baker is our guy, when does that decision happen? Is it after Sunday? Is it at the end of the season? Because what if we lose? It's this game where it's nothing, right? For the season, at least. And then where do you go from here? Because if the play is just the play like this, as it's been all year, what's the decision on him? And I feel like, man, I would not want to be in Andrew Berry's position at that point, because we're looking back on the season where this is mediocre, weird, play. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what the outcome looks like. And I would not want to be in Andrew Berry's shoes.
Me neither. I think that ultimately is going to happen. I mean, unless he does go absolutely berserk these last 5 games and they go 4-1 or 5-0, I just don't see a contract coming. I think they let him play out the last year. Who knows? They may even bring someone in for competition next year. Maybe a Marcus Mariota, maybe a Gardner Minshew type, something like that. And
here we go.
And then you see how it goes. But I just can't see that if they go 2-3 and he plays okay, that they sign him to that big contract. And then, they could play it how the Washington football team played it with Kirk Cousins. I think he went to 2. They went to 2 franchise tag years, right? Before he ultimately ended up going to in reality, you control Baker for the next 3 years, right. So if say next year he comes out and he looks more like 2 years ago, you either give him the big contract or you throw the franchise tag on him. And the franchise tag probably if the first year it's like the average of the top 10 quarterbacks, and then the next year would be the average of the top 5. So you go to the 35 million for one and maybe to 45 million for the second. So, but I don't think it's going to get to that. I think they'll make a decision after next year. I do expect Baker to be the starter next year, no matter what. I don't think there's a circumstance where they may bring somebody in who's a competent backup to maybe compete.
Right.
But I think Baker, no matter what happens these last 5 games, is the starter going into next year. It just depends on what happens in these last 5 games, if he's the long-term answer in their eyes and they give him the contract. So it's very interesting. It is. If nothing else, Holly, it's going to be fascinating the last 5 weeks. We're on national TV 3 of these last 5 weeks. Yes. So it's going to be exactly. Christmas Day, which remember last year, Christmas Day game was incredible with Alvin Kamara scoring like 10 touchdowns in that game. So all eyes of the world will be on the Browns Packers that day. Which that's why the NFL has got
the level of nausea, Jeremy, the level of nausea that I will have on Christmas morning of like, I'm talking about like rocking back and forth in the fetal position of like, when's this game going to start and what are we going to do? Can you not embarrass us? Will Aaron Rodgers shit the bed? Like something could happen. Is there a God?
The NFL has to be rooting for the Browns to win these next 2 games. Because if they're 6-8, I mean, it's still be intriguing going into that because then it's a dumpster fire. But if the Browns, if they win these next 2 games, then that's an absolutely huge game with the Browns and the Packers. And so.
All right. Well, Jeremy, let's I want to get your prediction and I want to play a little kind of fun game.
Okay.
I think it's fun. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
and me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we are back on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. I'm Holly Wetzel, of course, joined with none other than Jeremy Powell as we are breaking down this quiet bye week and looking to round 2 of the Ravens coming up. So, Jeremy, I have a couple scenarios for you for the Browns-Ravens game, and I want to know from you what you think out of these things are most likely to happen. Okay. And then the last one is a little bit of a, not an either or, but just a general. First one, Baker throws for over 300 yards. Okay. That's one. Defense sacks Lamar 4 times again. Or Stefanski doesn't abandon the run and wears out the Baltimore with the W.
Well, the most
Which one of those to happen? Yes.
Oh, the four sacks for sure, because I think Baltimore might be down a right tackle now as well, and Villanueva's never. Again? I think 4 again, and then I think they might get more than 4. And Villanueva has never played well against Miles for whatever reason. Even when he was one of the better left tackles in the league, Miles always kind of had his number. So I think the Browns will get 4 sacks. I don't think there's any chance Baker is going to go throw for 300 yards, because I think it's going to be not just because of Baker. I think it's going to be bad weather. It's going to be windy and crappy. I think the second most likely is the run game to get going. I think that they said today that they streamlined, that Stefanski said they kind of streamlined operation, kind of like they did last year. I think you're going to see, I think that they probably had time to examine what they do best. They know that they run the ball best. They know that at times they've even ran it well against 8 and 9 man boxes. I think they're going to reevaluate that. I think you're going to see them consciously make an effort to stick to the run, especially early, to establish that run game. Exactly. Yes. Like we did. The 2, like I even heard Stefanski say this, the 2 and 3 yard runs in the first quarter become 5 and 6 yard runs in the fourth. Right. Yeah. So
it's like, listen to yourself, bro.
Right. Listen to yourself. I've heard you say this in the past. So I think, let me just, I'll put those scenarios where I think the most likely is 4 sacks. The second most likely is the establishing the running game, sticking to the run game. And the one I don't think is going to happen is Baker throwing for 300 yards. I love to be wrong if it was early in the season or if it was in better weather, but I think this is going to be I told you the other week, I love to muck it up, get ugly, win ugly, muck it all up. It's going to be probably crappy weather. So that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I think the Stefanski, for me, I'm going to flip those. I think the Stefanski, I think we're getting back to basics. I do think we're going to get the win. I don't think it's going to be by a huge margin, but I do think that, they're kind of coming off playing a little angry. They got, Baker, Mr. Chip on his shoulder. We beat up Ravens team. I mean, we definitely have everything in our favor. I think we're 1.5 point favorites right now, even though it's super early in the week. But I think we sneak it out. I think we get the win. So my last question, Jeremy, which Browns players, father or mother, will be the next one to make a comment on social media about Baker? Who is most likely?
I'll tell you who's not. It's not going to be Nick Chubb. I promise you that. It's not going to be his parents. The next parent to get mad is what's Donovan Peoples-Jones' dad up to? What's Mr. Jones?
What about Hollywood Higgins? What about what's going on with Higgins?
Higgins has been, this is 3 coaching staffs where Higgins is like something. So there's obviously Chase thinks it's a video game issue. Plays too many video games. But.
Yeah, well, who else has that problem that I will not say, but you know who I'm talking about, has a real bad video game problem that I know on a personal basis every day. Can't say anything more.
My pick on that would be Mr. Peoples-Jones. Mr. Peoples-Jones will be our next angry dad.
I like it. The angry dad of the week. New segment. Well, all right. Well, Jeremy, what's your official prediction for Sunday?
I actually do think I think the Browns are going to win this game. I think they're going to keep the season alive. I think the Ravens eventually, we've talked about this before, but the next man up, we always say next man up next. Eventually you run out of next men, right? I think the Ravens are about at that spot. I mean, that's secondary. Maybe I should reevaluate, because this could be a week if the weather is decent or when you throw the ball. I mean, Marlon Humphrey is clearly the best player in that secondary. Now he's gone. If you watch that Browns game, he swallowed up Peoples-Jones. He swallowed up tight ends. He played it really, really well against the Browns in that game. And what's it saying early?
It's looking 41 and sunny.
Hey, if it's 41 and sunny,
if it's not windy.
I know. And that's another thing. When you lose a player in the secondary, it's going to make that of Marlon Humphrey's stature, mean, that's the best player in their secondary by a mile, probably outside of Calais Campbell, the best player on that defense. And it makes it a lot tougher to play, zero coverage with 9 men in the box when you're missing so that could help the running game as well, Marlon Humphrey. I had a conversation with a business associate today who said, he's a secondary guy. They're still going to pack at 9 in the box. I'm like, yeah, but it's not as easy to said as done. It's a lot. When you lose an impact player like that, it affects all areas of the defense. So
I think we felt his impact last week. Or
he played a great game last week.
Like,
so I think the Browns win this game because I think the Ravens, it's just, I posted on Facebook yesterday that I could actually see the Ravens falling out of the playoffs. I know everyone says I'm nuts, but man, that is a team that is beat up. And you only can sustain so much. Yes, Lamar is great. Yes, I know. I love, everyone loves Lamar. I love Lamar. But I just think that at a certain point, there's no next man up. You ran out of men. And I think their secondary is definitely there. The whole defense has been beat up. The right tackle, his name escapes me, but the right tackle went down during the Steelers game, didn't come back. I believe it was Ronnie Stanley that went down in the game though. But so their offensive line's beat up. Obviously, all their running backs are gone. Now their their secondary is ravaged by injury. So it's just a team that is just beaten up. I think they're going to come into Cleveland. I think the Browns coming off the bye, they'll be refreshed, ready to go.
Right, we're home. Yep.
Yeah, everything. And so I think the Browns win this game, extend the season. And then then you got a Raiders team who's been Jekyll and Hyde. Derek Carr was getting booed at home this week. So they were cheering.
Yeah. I'm sure he's not skipping press conferences for God's sake.
Mariota. They brought in Mariota for like 3 plays, and the fans give him a standing O on purpose.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. People are brutal. It's like I don't know.
Carr's having the best year of his career. They're still booed him at Oakland. So
I've gotten shit in my job quite a bit. I've been called all kinds of names. You get called names all the time on social media and whatever. But anyway,
I Googled my name on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter in a year. Right? I Google my name, and the first thing I see is F you, Jeremy and Akron. I know you're not on Twitter, but you're out there somewhere. I'm like, oh my gosh. The first thing I even looked on Twitter. A year later, someone just randomly that I've never even heard of. So crazy.
It's like people have nothing else better to do. You just got to ignore that shit.
Wild though.
But yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe they sneak it out. Yeah. I mean, hopefully they sneak it out, I should say. It'd be great.
I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win.
Baker have a big game.
I think it's going to be same thing. Both these teams have been like fighting for points lately. I think the Browns win like a 21-14, 21-17. Just don't let it come down to a kick by Justin Tucker, please. Please. Let's win this game outright.
You just put that into the universe, so I hope you're happy.
Yeah, right. We've seen that.
Man, oh man,
we've been to that movie and seen how that show ends.
You sure have. Gosh. Yes. So, all right. Well, next week we'll see where we land. We'll see what team shows up, and next week we'll start to make some big predictions too, Jeremy, of who's going to be taking the AFC North and beyond the AFC in its whole, and hopefully the Browns are still in the running. It'd be really nice way to end the year.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if that Christmas game really meant something. The rest 8-6 going into that game. So got 2 home games right there. Win these 2 home games and let's have a fun Christmas. What do you say?
Absolutely. I'm here for it. All right. Well, that does it for us here on the Oranges Orange Cleveland Browns podcast. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on Apple, and you can find everything about Press Play Podcast and the Oranges Oranger and many other fantastic podcasts on this platform at pressplaypodcast.com. So, Jeremy, let's go Browns. Get the dub.
Let's go.